Today is February 3rd, 2023, and the only things standing between us and Yankees baseball are the Super Bowl and March Madness. Tonight, I am joined live by Dan Rourke of Yankees Avenue to discuss the state of the Yankees. What can Judge do for an encore? Who's going to play left field? We'll also talk about the shortstop battle and prospects that may be flying under the radar. 55 days until opening day. Let's get after it. This is NYY Recaps.
Welcome.
Welcome back, everybody. Our long national nightmare known as the offseason is almost over, so I'm here with Dan Rourke, the Yankees YouTube legend, closing in on 100,000 subscribers on Yankees Avenue, producer of Towing the Slab with Mr. David Cohn. Dan Rourke, everybody.
Hi, Dan.
Welcome to the show, buddy.
What up, man? Long time no see. You know, it's been a little bit, I think, since I've been on with you. I don't know if we were on at all last year. It's been so long.
I tried to book you before the season, and you had something come up, and then, during the season, I was just so busy. I pretty much streamed by myself during the season, so.
Right. Are you a football guy? Are you ready for this all to be over? I know I am. I didn't watch a split second of championship weekend, to be honest.
I didn't watch any football this year. I maybe watched, a couple of quarters of Giants games, just trying to learn the players, because I got a Madden franchise going, so I'm kind of trying to, learn the ball club a little bit. But I'm not really I don't really like sports other than baseball and boxing. You know what I mean? Those are my two things.
Totally. No, I feel you. I'm a casual Knicks fan, casual Jets fan. Definitely don't lose sleep over them the way I do the Yankees. But we're kind of getting there, man. We're almost there. What, less than 2 weeks now till pitchers and catchers?
Yeah, that's like a national holiday for me. When you hear pitchers and catchers reporting, it's like this huge weight gets lifted. It's like, okay, it's time. I can start paying attention to baseball again. Well, hey, look, Yankees made some moves this winter. Not as many as I think a lot of us were expecting, but they made the one big move that I think we were all hoping for. Where were you when the arson judge news broke? Because I was picturing you in panic mode.
Dude, so remember at that point there was already a lot of smoke going towards Judge with the Giants, and so I was already kind of entering my depression phase just a little bit. And then I saw the tweet. I immediately went live, which you may know I never do. Yankees Avenue, we don't really do much live content, but I was like, what do I do? Hopped on live. Right as I got on live, I saw the retraction tweet, and I was like, all right. So at that point we still didn't really know what was going on, because the rest of that day played out and he still hadn't signed. So I remember that night, I had an awful dream, man. It might as well have been real life. It basically was as if Judge legitimately went to the Giants. And I remember in this dream, it almost let me play out my real life emotions that I wanted to have, but I knew I couldn't cry over a baseball player. But in this dream, man, I was sobbing. Was able to wake up the next day, though. Judge signed with the Yankees. So it all kind of worked out. I was able to, the highs are so much better when you experience the lows. So in a way, I was, able to experience the low of Judge not being a Yankee. Fortunately, all worked out in the end. So I'm chilling.
Yeah. I was super happy when they re-signed him, but I immediately thought of you because I was worried that they were going to have to put a net under the Throg's Neck Bridge or something like that if he signed somewhere else just to keep Dan from jumping. But look, he had a monster year last year. Obviously, it was a historic year. I've been watching for 35 years, and I can't think of a season that was more fun to watch for a Yankees player. I mean, A-Rod had some good ones. I hear a lot of people saying that there's no way Judge can come close to doing that again. I'll be surprised if he does this and that. I don't want to count him out, because if there's one thing we've learned from Judge is that the man is just built differently. You know what I mean? But I do want to set expectations. So, what would you consider a successful season for Judge? Beyond, obviously, team success, that's the most important thing. But when you look back at his year in 2024, the first year as captain, what kind of numbers are you looking for?
Yeah, well, first of all, as for Judge repeating it, I think the second he came up in 17 or had that great year in 17, him touching 60 homers was always possible. And I think a big misconception people get into is the fact that Judge, obviously was a free agent last year, and we always talk about the pressure of a contract year. Some players put up better numbers in that situation. Some people put up worse numbers. Baseball, though, and this is the same reason why our All-Star game is the best of any. When you're playing baseball, you're playing baseball. So it's not like Judge, in my opinion, was trying harder per se last year. The dude is crazy talented, has always been capable of hitting 60 homers. And yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if he does it again. Now, regardless, though, whether he hits 45 homers, 65 homers, Judge is going to be Judge. He's going to be great. And Fangraphs, I like to look at their projections. They have him hitting 283, 48 homers, and a 176 WRC plus. I would be obviously more than fine with that. Big question is obviously, what is the team around him going to do? What does the rest of the lineup look like? Now, I think there is a slight misconception out there that this Yankee lineup hasn't improved. And while I do agree with that, I do think people aren't giving them enough credit. Not enough credit per se, but there are some good factors coming into the new year. One, DJ LeMahieu, I think a lot of people forget, he was a 140 WRC plus hitter last year. Gleyber Torres, or 140 WRC plus hitter until he hurt his toe in August. Gleyber Torres, in my opinion, 5 out of the 6 months last year was the best version of Gleyber Torres that we ever saw. The kids coming up, Volpe, Peraza, as well as Cabrera, and a full season Harrison Bader, we're going to see, we talk about the jump from 21 to 22 in terms of athleticism. I think we're going to get that and then some this year. So Judge, he's going to be Judge. He's going to be just fine. I think we know what to expect from him. It's just, you can't have a situation where he's like it was the second half last year where he was carrying the entire lineup. And I think, I do think the rest of the lineup is going to be better fitted around him though. So yeah, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a monster year personally. I think that the championship, still not getting here after getting so close his first couple of years, being in the ALCS a bunch of times, it's got to be a huge driving factor, this guy wants to win, I think, above all else. And that's got to be a major reason why he came back here. Say what you want about the $300 million, but he could have gotten that anywhere. He chose to come back to the Yankees.
Yeah, totally. And I think a big thing with Judge was he always wanted to be Yankee. That much is clear. But the second that they lowballed him last year, whether it was, and it was a respectable offer at the time, $215 million it was. Also, you had the arbitration. I just think with all that stuff, the second Judge didn't feel properly valued by the Yankees last year, I think his mindset was, all right, this is where I want to be. I'm going to stay, but I'm going to milk every single last cent. And that's what he did with the 360. And real quick on the playoffs thing, Judge has been asked the last few postseasons. We kind of know that last year, 2020 wasn't amazing. 2020, well, that was just a wild card game. But there's a misconception out there, a false narrative that Judge just lacks the ability to hit in the playoffs. Flat out not true. One, regular season, this guy's been easily our most clutch hitter for the last 2 years, maybe next to Giancarlo Stanton. Also, do we forget that his first 3 postseasons were pretty damn good? 17 had good wildcard game, tough ALDS, but was also really good and had some big hits in the ALCS. The very next year in 2018 was phenomenal in the wildcard game and against Boston. Had some big series and big moments in 2019 as well. So Judge is definitely capable of hitting in the postseason. That is the one monkey on his back, though. So if there were like a goal I have for him this year is, don't hit 190 per se in October, but I'm not necessarily worried about it,
Yeah, I think if he's healthy, he'll come around. And look, nobody really hit in the postseason last year. I mean, Stanton hits every year, but you got to have somebody around you to really do damage because he's the most dangerous hitter in the lineup. If nobody's getting on in front of him, there's no reason to pitch to him. And if nobody's really hammering the ball behind him, again, you're going to pitch him carefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going back to my DJ point. That's a huge, huge factor that I'm looking forward to in this year is because, yeah, Donaldson may still be on the team, but if I'm writing out the opening day lineup next year, my third baseman is DJ LeMahieu. That's just the way that it's going to work out. Because if he's healthy, he's there. You're obviously going to put Gleyber at second base, Rizzo at first, and then whoever the shortstop is. Yeah, Donaldson will find time, but my message to any Yankee fans out there is don't undervalue the return of a healthy DJ because him in the 5-hole last year against Houston, I'm not saying we would have won the series, but I do think it would have at least been a little bit closer.
They would have definitely put up some more runs. The one thing that worries me about DJ is he's broken down the last couple of years, so I'm not sure he's really a 150 game kind of guy anymore. I would love it if he could be, but you almost have to trade off some time with him, and that might be one of the reasons they've kept Donaldson around. I also think Oswaldo Cabrera, played really well over there when he got a chance. Totally. And we're gonna talk about the shortstop battle in a second, but I want to get to left field because that's something that to me is more of a focus than anything because I really don't want to see Aaron Hicks out there. But I Brian Cashman's singing his praises. I don't know if I buy it. Do you think there's a move coming, and do you think that there's going to be like a Hicks and Cabrera battle in spring training? You think maybe a prospect like Pereira could step in, something like that?
I like Pereira. I like him a lot. But yeah, I'm sure they'll label it a battle. I'm not sure if it'll exactly be that. I'm not holding out hope that they'll get a move done by opening day. Although, if you read the full article on what Cashman said, some pretty good things in there. He mentioned how he's still trying to get an outfielder, and a deal could be done sometime in March. Who knows? As for Waldo versus Hicks, first of all, what is Cashman really going to say about Hicks? He's not going to devalue the guy, so I understand
Right.
where he's coming from that point. And with Waldo, I mean, listen, if you were to tell me he's definitely going to be our guy in left come October, yeah, you have me a little bit concerned. But the way I see it is this current roster, this current team is without a doubt good enough to win the AL East. They should win the AL East. So you have until the deadline. Now, who knows? Maybe it'll work out to where Waldo blows your socks off and you want to keep him out there. I'm not too sure. He was pretty damn solid come end of the year with the bat from September 9th on. He had hit 6 homers in 24 games, like a 960 OPS. Defense in left does concern me just a little bit. I mean, I know he looked really good in right field. Actually, in just like 250 innings, he somehow finished like 4th among all right fielders in defensive runs saved, which is really impressive. Left field in Yankee Stadium, different animal. But I think we have enough time to figure it out, given 3 or 4 months of playing time. And even when you do say get a left fielder, I would love Brian Reynolds. That doesn't, say take playing time necessarily away from Cabrera, because my mindset the whole time was he can go into the new year being like how we looked at DJ in 2019, or even just from somebody's going to get injured. Even if he didn't have a full starting job, Oswaldo Cabrera, you could still find his way 130 plus games this season,
Yeah.
So I like to see him in there. I think ultimately it is going to be him come opening day, but Brian Reynolds, that's still my
Yeah.
guy.
I like Brian Reynolds. I'm just, I think the Brian Reynolds situation might be one of the reasons that they brought in Sabian and Manaya, just to kind of evaluate the farm. You know what I mean? Get a couple of other guys in the room who can maybe offer a dissenting opinion on some of these prospects. Like, hold on to this guy. Don't hold on to this guy.
Right.
I like Reynolds, but again, I just, we're so close on either the Martian or Spencer Jones or Pereira that I just don't know if Cashman's going to pull the trigger on
Which
something like that.
scares me though, because I'm not sure where you stand on prospect hugging. I know where you stand on Jason Dominguez though, so
Oh, a
this
big,
might
big Jason guy.
I know, but me being the way I'm currently at with my fandom is I'm so ready to win now, man. And I even felt this way at the time in like say 2017, 2018 when it comes to where we didn't trade Clint Frazier, Miguel Andujar for Garrett Cole or whatever the deal that we didn't pull the trigger on. It's very concerning, the idea of we could let this entire window go by and not have a World Series championship to show for it. And I've kind of been scarred waiting on these baby bombers, these prospects, which some have worked out, obviously. Jason Dominguez, I have a lot of faith in, but if you give me a trade offer right now, Brian Reynolds for Jason Dominguez and Oswald Peraza, to be honest with you, man, I'm taking it, because I think that then does put you past the hump against the Astros, or at least get you in the same playing field. And that's all it's really about, right? Because baseball, like the Yankees have been saying, come postseason, it is a crapshoot. I actually do buy into that theory. But when the gap was as far as it was, so far between the Yankees and the Astros, that doesn't anymore apply. But you can get to the conversation to where it's close and it can be a legitimate series where you come out on top if you were to go out and say, get Brian Reynolds. Not saying that's not possible without him, but if you were to make that move, I'm feeling like, we might be the best team in baseball. Just saying.
Yeah. The one thing about Reynolds, though, is it's, at this point, it's still possible to get him at the deadline, right? I mean,
Yes, absolutely.
so you could see how Dominguez and Jones do this year. From the things I've read about Spencer Jones, he's escalated up a lot of prospect lists. And, we were kind of, it grabbed our attention when they drafted somebody who was 6'7", like Judge, and huge, but a lefty. And it had my curiosity, but it really got my attention when he got off to a hot start. And I just kind of want to see what he looks like a little bit. I mean, what if he really does rocket through the system? What if Jason really finally steps into that potential? So, I mean, if we could give it till the trade deadline before pulling the trigger, I'd totally be on board.
I'm totally with you on that. My stance is you can totally be you can stand pat till the deadline. But you know what it is, Derek? You've seen your championships, man. You got the 90s. I really don't got nothing. I got 09. So like I need it now. And I'm not totally, I feel like a lot of people think I'm the most irrational Yankee fan there is. No, I can be pretty realistic, but It's been too long, man. I saw '09 when I was 9 years old. I hardly
Right.
even remember, to be honest. I need
Yeah.
a World Series right now. So that's where the whole like anti-prospect hugging stance comes from. I need it now, and I'm not really willing to wait for kids who could turn out to be busts. Love you,
I hear you.
Jason. Love it. It's tough, man. It's really tough.
Yeah, I think Brian's definitely between a rock and the hard place. But let's figure out. Let's push left field aside and talk about shortstop. I feel like there's going to be a real competition, and I know that Oswald Peraza came up and got more playing time last year, but it sounds like the Yankees are extremely high on Volpe. He's the number one shortstop in baseball, if you believe the prospect lists. I've watched every highlight that I could find of him this year, and I mean I just think he looks phenomenal. I love that he's going to bring speed to the game when we got this pitch clock coming in, and we're going to be more aggressive on the bases. So he brings a little bit added dimension. You hear that Joez said he's like Mr. Yankee, right? He's got that Jeter kind of personality. Is there somebody that you're rooting for out of the two at shortstop?
Definitely rooting for Volpe just because it's kind of, I don't want to say like a fairy tale story, but it kind of just all makes sense. I mean, New Jersey kid, first round draft pick, has that smile that you talked about, and top 5 prospect in baseball. Like, it would be amazing. Opening day, he's your shortstop. Word, perfect. I don't think that's going to be the case, mainly because Jack Curry, who really has a grip on like the insides of the organization, he says the job is Oswald Peraza's to lose. That's fine. They say IKF going to be in the competition as well. I can't even fathom the idea of him potentially even getting that job. First of all, a $6 million backup infielder is atrocious to begin with. But if you were to, after what happened last October, when Peraza should have been starting probably a month or two before that anyways, IKF loses his job to Peraza. If you were to go back and have him start opening day, IKF, that would just be a terrible look, to almost where like I almost feel bad for IKF that he would even be put into this situation. Regardless, so I don't think that's going to end up being the case. I think you're looking at Peraza opening day. Then Volpe, honestly, I see by Memorial Day coming up. Now, does that mean he takes over at shortstop? Probably not. Although I will say, people talk about the disparity between in defense with Peraza and Volpe. Yes, Peraza is better, but if you actually look into the scouting reports, Volpe's no like bum at short. Like his arm is apparently decent enough. He's quick enough for sure. So like he for sure can play the position. Whether that means he does go to short when he comes up with Peraza still there, or he goes to second, I'm not too sure. I think at the very latest, though, by the deadline, or not by the deadline, or sure, but by the All-Star break, you're looking at both Peraza and Volpe in the Yankees starting lineup. IKF, I figure he'll be traded by the deadline, to be honest, because like I said, $6 million for a backup infielder is rough. Which honestly, if it weren't for that, like I think IKF would be fine off the bench. Like he's a nice piece. It's just the situation he was put into. That odds were stacked against him from the beginning,
I like the contact, but I think you're right. I think IKF is prime trade bait. We saw a couple of teams trade for him last winter within a week. The Yankees do have kind of a logjam in the infield. I mean, we got Gleyber Torres, we got DJ, we got Donaldson. Something's got to give, right? I mean, it would make sense to move one of those guys. And to me, IKF is somebody who, he's got such an affordable contract that you really could move him into a number of places. A lot of teams would probably be interested to put him at third base because he was a Gold Glover there, right?
Yeah, totally. And also, Josh Donaldson may seem untradeable right now, but if he has a good first half, he could also be dealt as well, or maybe you want to hold on to him. I don't necessarily look at the infield logjam as too much of an issue, only because you do have the DH spot, and while Stanton won't be an everyday outfielder, I believe the plan is still to maybe get him out there like potentially 2 days a week. So with that being the case, and just off days, I think they definitely can make it work. But I want to emphasize this. Going into the new year, DJ LeMahieu is your third baseman. Don't give me no Josh
100%.
Donaldson, none of that. DJ is the third baseman.
Yeah, I agree, and I just hope he can stay healthy. So we talked about Volpe, we talked about Peraza. We've already established that I'm a stan for Jason Dominguez. But aside from those guys, is there another prospect that's kind of got you, watching a little extra closely this year?
Yeah, so I felt a little on the edge of doing this or not because he's still a top prospect. He's our number 4 in the system. But man, Austin Wells, I feel like even in the top 100 prospects list, he very sneakily stuck in at number 96. And while I don't think he's the catcher of the future because, scouts don't really love him there, and he's had some elbow issues. Really, if you've seen him throw the ball to second base, he doesn't look exactly like a catcher to me. But the point is, this dude can hit. He's done nothing but rake since getting drafted in the first round of 2020, I believe. Dude, and played 55 games last year at Double A. 860 or 880 OPS ever since getting drafted by the Yankees in almost 200 minor league games. So this dude has raked. And, I mentioned a potential position change. Scouts project him to be a corner outfielder. And this dude bats from the left side. So knowing that and the fact he's already reached AA, will for sure probably be a AAA at some point this year, he could be MLB ready. So not saying that you're answering left field, but the prospects that always really intrigue me are the ones that are close to cracking the big league roster. And Austin Wells isn't all that far off and could come in a position of need technically. So I'm interested in him for sure. Also, side note, Everson Pereira, man, I mean, he's also a stud. The K rate is kind of concerning. Strikes out at like 30% rate in the minor leagues. Not great, but dude can hit, plays center field. The Yankees prospect system is really, or farm system is kind of underrated. Don't you get that vibe? Like we have some good pieces in there. We really do. And a lot of them aren't too far off. I mean, if you look at the top 5, I think the furthest one away is technically Jason, and even he's in AA. So
we're light on pitching. We're light on pitching depth, especially at the higher levels. I mean, I'm kind of high on.
Makes the Montes trade hurt more. Sorry,
right? I'm kind of high on Clayton Beeter. Just for that reason. Just because if the Yankees have some kind of an injury in the rotation, you're going to need to look to the minors, and there's nobody really who's knocking at the door, right? I mean, you could go to Clark Schmidt. We're assuming that Domingo is going to get the number 5 job because he's 15 appearances last year, 3.61 ERA.
As he should, in my opinion.
I agree. I think he's got lights out stuff. And one of these years, it would not shock me if he puts it together and just rattles off like a nice, 2.9 ERA with about 17 wins and about 185 strikeouts. He's got that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
But I like Beeter just from what I've seen, on highlights this year. He's got a great curveball, got an upper 90s fastball. He's somebody I'm keeping my eye on. And, we talked about Spencer Jones, but Trey Sweeney really has my attention too. And for this reason, we've talked about the depth at shortstop. Sounds like he's open to a position change to third base. Now, if he's a guy who hits from the left side of the plate and can play a slick third base, I'm getting Robin Ventura memories from that. Do you remember Robin Ventura? Is he a little bit before you?
Highlights only, my friend. Highlights only.
Well, he was more than just the guy who got beat up by Nolan Ryan. He had a beautiful left-handed swing, and he was tailor-made for Yankee Stadium. So, I always keep my eye on lefties. And speaking of Austin Wells, I've been watching a lot of him too. And his swing reminds me a little bit of Nick Johnson, also from that 2000s era.
I see that.
He's got the slightly open stance, but he's very quiet at the plate, and he's got a slightly upward swing, very Ted Williams-esque kind of cut, science of hitting. And I like that he drives the ball the other way. Like but he'll also pull it. So he's dangerous, as a lefty who can beat you. You really can't pitch him, too carefully because he'll drive the ball all over the ballpark. What you said about Everson Pereira, definitely true. I'm a little bit concerned about his injury history. Sometimes when guys get hurt a lot in the minor leagues, like it's hard to really shake that, to shake that reputation and really get that shot. But if he stays healthy this year, who knows?
Now, fill me in. Is he, because I'm not exactly caught up on it. Are they like soft tissue injuries that he's dealing with, or like?
So he had a shoulder injury and he had an ankle injury from what I've read.
Okay. So they weren't exactly like freak Jacob Genius hits Aaron Judge on the wrist type accidents.
Right. It's, I don't know how he got the injuries, but, and again, I read this, I think, in one of the Fireside Yankees blogs, so I might be transposing it with somebody else, but,
got you.
But he's got, he's got real talent if he can stay healthy.
I think you're also looking at, I think Johnny Brito will definitely be a factor this year as well. And, at some point, I think Luis Heel may also potentially be around. What was his deal last year with the Tommy John? He was out by May, so maybe he's a factor late this year. You
August?
also have potentially, and then Randy Vasquez, I believe he's only in AA. He actually has some pretty nice stuff. Fastball isn't great. I think he tops out at around 95, but scouts do love him. Even if he just ends up being like a long guy out of the bullpen. So they don't have like the top pitching prospects arms. But I could see a few of these guys like playing a role at some point this year. Hopefully that's not exactly needed, but I'm sure it will be. We always know how it works out.
Yeah, this team always seems to have a ton of trouble with injuries in recent years. Who's really kind of fallen off that disappointed me is Davy Garcia. When he first came up in 2020, he looked like a stud. He had all the poise. He was, competitive every time out. But it seems like ever since that one ALDS game where they took him out after one inning, he's just never had the confidence to throw strikes again after that.
Well, if that's the case, and honestly, that's his problem because I just think that's ridiculous. Which very well, I mean, that might be true, honestly. But yeah, dude, I have no idea what the hell happened. I mean, like it's been going on for some time now because you had a full year in 2021 in AAA, 24 starts, 6.85 ERA, and then last year in what 37 innings, 7.96. I don't know, man. What happened to this guy, especially too, because remember, he was probably our top trade piece at the 2020 deadline. That was the big thing. Like, were you willing to give up Davey or not? And the Yankees weren't. Not saying, would have led to a World Series. Who cares if it would have? But that's things with prospects, man. It scares me. Really, really scares me. That's why I think the golden rule, and this is what I live by, you pick one guy, everybody else is on the table. For me, it's Volpe. That's why Jason, Peraza, even Wells. Like, I love these guys, but if they're able to get you a piece that you think puts you over the hump in the conversation with the Astros, I think you really, really have to consider it no matter how much you like these guys. That's just me, though.
That's a great philosophy. I've never thought about it that way. You kind of picking a horse. I guess Jason would be my horse, but then it's like, if somebody approached me to trade Volpe for, a Brian Reynolds, it's like, oh, I can't do it. But I honestly, Jason straight up for Reynolds, I think I would do, just because, like you said, it makes you the instant favorite, and you never know. I mean, but hearing a guy get described as a refrigerator box full of dynamite, like he was in the ESPN article yesterday. Oh man, it's just got my.
Hey, I get why you're excited, man. But I also remember Clint Frazier's legendary bat speed too.
This is true. So. This is true. Oh man, that's another guy who was kind of disappointing. I think a lot of what Clint Frazier went through is a result of the concussion. It seemed like he just couldn't get his vision. Like he was great until that concussion. After the vision went, it just seemed like he was. And to his own admission, he played through it without telling people. Like he played because he wanted to get the job. And that hurt his stock because he didn't put up the numbers. I think if he just can get healthy, I think he still can be a good player. What do you think?
Yeah, you definitely have more of like the scouting eye than I do. I root for him. I hope he does well, only because, first round draft pick, seemed like a nice dude at first, definitely has a lot of talent. Would be great for it to work out. I don't feel bad at all about how it ended in New York, though, because, while he had those issues with the concussion, definitely sucks. He also didn't handle himself great here. And that's something true. That, like, the second you don't wear the pinstripes right, per se, or even just whether it was the way he would talk to reporters, even, like, I've heard stories that, like, internally in the Yankees organization, whether it's from, like, the PR team or just media relations, they hated his guts by the way he acted. So, like, knowing that that's the case, I don't exactly feel bad for him. I do hope he does well. What he signed with, the Rangers, I think? The Rangers?
Cubs, I thought.
No, wasn't that last year? I think he signed with the Cubs.
Oh, that's right. He got released by the Cubs. Yeah, he's with the Rangers. Yeah, he's bounced around.
So I hope he does well. I mean, you ever do that? Like you just check in on like old Yankees top prospects, see how they're doing. Like I'll always have attachment to Jorge Mateo. Like I hope he does well. Yeah. And one more thing, this is totally random. Going back to what we were talking about before. Speaking of like former top prospects, how you feel about Jurickson Profar? Would you want him or no?
So I think he would be a slight upgrade from what we have now out there.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't go more than, $6 or $7 million per year for him, maybe a 2-year, $6 or $7 million deal. That way you could unload him. Sounds like he wants 9 or 10, and that's why he's kind of holding tight. Yeah. But I do like the idea of a switch hitter. He's got power. He had a, career best year last year in terms of WAR.
And the Yankees have always been attached to him too.
Yeah, he's always like those guys who were top prospects that came up early, like Rougned Odor was one of those guys, came up around the same time. Yeah, I can see Cashman being interested. We've heard Max Kepler's name thrown out. I'm not a big Kepler guy. I know he makes contact, but I just feel like, I don't know, it's something about the combination of exit velocity and expected batting average.
I hear you. But I think the way I look at it is, not comparing them to Oswaldo Cabrera, I think he still would get a bulk of playing time. Are they better than Aaron Hicks? And I think if you're looking at Max Kepler and in particular Jurickson Profar, I think the answer to that is yes. With Profar to Hicks, 2 years younger, he's still a switch hitter, strikes out pretty sure significantly less, and the offense production is just around the same. The only hit you would be taking defensively, got to give it to Hicks. He still has the edge over Profar, but I just think it's not a matter of like saying, oh, this is your guy, this is what's going to get us over the hump with the Astros. Does adding Jurickson Profar make the Yankees roster better? And to me, it's yes. So if you can get a deal done for, like you said, like $6-7 million, I think it makes a lot of sense, but you probably only do that if you can trade Hicks. Because if not, Yankees right now, I think they're just under the Cohen tax at 290. So if they were to make that move, you're gonna probably want to shed like at least 5 or 6 mil, basically the equivalent of what Profar's salary of what you owe Hicks per year. You know what I'm saying? So if they can get that done, bring them on.
Brandon Gibbons says Ian Hatt mentioned on the compound that Donaldson has spent the offseason looking at metrics and retooling his swing. I don't know. You think they can teach an old dog new tricks? We've seen it happen before. What was his Matt Carpenter turned it around?
Yeah, no, for sure. And listen, I think I would almost expect Donaldson to hit 25 homers this year because there's one simple fix. And I'm the furthest thing from like a baseball genius like when it comes to on the field. Off the field, obviously, I'm very smart. But no, all the pitches he took right down the middle, just swing. Like, I could tell you that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like if you just start swinging at these pitches that are right down the dick, I'm sure you run into 25 homers and have a 760 OPS.
That was the problem.
You know?
He would swing at bad pitches and then take the hittable pitches, and that was what was most frustrating to me about that.
Derek, you might as well put me in there, man. Like, have you seen my blitzball swing? At least I know how to work a walk.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got a nice swing. I'm not gonna lie,
No,
you got a nice.
Don't lie.
No, you got a nice. I liked the oops. What was the? It was the Willie Mays Hayes, the oops swing where you picked up a base knock. But I enjoyed, calling his shot. I like it. So Martin says, "What is your guys' all-time Yankees bust lineup?" So let's talk through some busts. So we got to start with Jesus Montero at catcher, right?
If you want to call him a catcher, yeah. Totally. Man, that was a trade I was so upset about at the time. But, it was a cool trade. If you think about it, just straight up Montero for Pena. I think Hector Noesi was a part of that as well.
Yep.
I guess we won it, technically, right? I mean, Pineda.
Yeah, I mean, we got more out of Pineda. Yeah.
Yeah. So, definitely Montero behind the dish. First base, I swear, if anybody in the comments, I love you all, but if you say Jason Giambi, I think that's the biggest misconception. Like, remember, I put out a few weeks ago he was good. Like, some people, when I was talking about like worst contracts ever, somebody mentioned Giambi. It's like, nah, he was pretty damn good. First base, I mean, shit.
Greg Bird.
You got to go Greg Bird.
Yeah.
Right.
I think he's another guy that that he's a perfect example of why you can't count your chickens before they hatch, because an injury took his career away. He was going to have a great career until he tore his labrum. I had the same injury that he has and that Miguel Andujar had, where you would tear that labrum. And I'm telling you, you just lose speed. You just lose arm speed. It hurts
your
throwing.
It back?
I mean, some people, I guess, have, but Michael Pineda had the same injury. I mean, it's very rare. If you hurt your elbow, you can come back from that pretty easily these days. But coming back from the shoulders, tough. Second base, oh man. I mean, I hate to say this, but Chuck Knobloch, maybe because he couldn't throw the ball from second base to first base, had to go to left field. I mean, Steve Sachs had the same problem. Shortstop, maybe Tulowitzki. Who you got for second and short?
For second, I mean, I only want to speak off the eras that I've watched, which is pretty much 09 on. I can't even really call this guy a bust. What did you expect? The worst second baseman I watched in the Yankees was Stephen Drew, but the expectations weren't exactly there. So, I don't know if I want to call him a bust. He did what we probably all thought he was going to do.
Well, there was hype to trade for him all summer. And you remember they were like, people were saying, get Stephen Drew, and then they get him, and he did nothing.
He was like a 220 hitter, because when they got him was the year he sat out for a couple months to wait for the draft. Remember, because he got the qualifying offer from Boston. That's right. Ended up re-signing with them, I think in like June, but he was not good. And then we picked him up and then re-signed him for 15. But he'd probably be second base. I guess third is Donaldson. Is that how this question got started? I mean, that I could think of. I mean,
yeah. Let me think.
Unless you want to say like Brandon Drury, but
yeah, I mean, he was kind of like somebody that you stick in there that as kind of a stopgap type of thing, right?
Yeah, there wasn't expectations for Drury all that much, and it kind of worked out because Andujar at the time.
Yeah, Andujar. I mean, he's another disappointing because of the injury. He gave us one good year. The outfield, there's a ton of them. I mean. Oh man!
I mean Ellsbury, but that's a
layup. Yeah, Ellsbury was the worst. You could say Ricky Leday, even though he had some big hits in the postseason. That's before your time, but he was like the number one prospect for a while, and just never quite developed into that guy. I'm trying to think of
more.
I
mean, heck, when it comes to the regular season, I fared pretty well in my Yankees fandom when it comes to the regular season.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about postseason busts, I got a whole list for you.
Yeah. Let's see. Ruben Rivera. So he was, I don't know if you remember Ruben Rivera or even the story of Ruben Rivera. He's actually Mariano Rivera's cousin.
Oh,
And
really?
he's another guy who got compared, the next Mickey Mantle. He got called up in 96, maybe 95. 96, I think he got some real playing time. And he hit about 280 in limited playing time. And he looked like an athletic god. Got traded the next spring for Hideki Arabu. And he just stunk up the joint in San Diego. And we came back to the Yankees and ended up stealing Derek Jeter's glove. I'm sure there's a YouTube video about that. Listeners can look it up. During spring training, he stole Derek Jeter's glove out of his locker and tried to sell it on eBay and got kicked off the team. And that was the end of Ruben Rivera.
You're kidding. I never heard that story in my life. What happened to the guy? I mean, that's like shit. I'd call the cops.
Yeah, Jeter was already the captain. He was already like legend status at that point, and you steal his glove. Tough.
I got another one for third base. Kevin Youkilis, you could say.
Oh, he was awful. Yeah, he was another guy who was
only played
over
like
the
2
hill.
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This seems to be a thing. The Yankees go out and get, somebody who's clearly over the hill. Jay Bruce, you got to put him on the first base list. He couldn't even play first base. That was awful. I'm trying to think of pitchers that were big busts. I mean, I guess
Kiyagawa.
He was the worst. I remember he was coaching first base in AAA about a month after he made his major league debut. I was down in Durham, and the AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders were in town. I think they were the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Yankees at that point, and they have a player coach first base in the minor leagues. So, and it was Agawa, and he was so funny because he wasn't even paying attention to the game. He had his hands behind his back, and he was just kind of, like a little kid who would like make pictures in the dirt with his cleats and stuff like that. He used to wear sunglasses when he was pitching.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures, and it seemed like he kind of liked AAA a little bit because like he was hanging out there. I think he's the all-time Rail Riders wins leader to this day. I'm pretty sure. And
he wasn't bad.
Cashman tried to sell him back to Japan. He was like, "No, I'm chilling. I'll hang out in AAA." So
he wasn't bad in AAA.
Props to him.
But he couldn't pitch at the big league level. I guess you could say that Jabba Chamberlain was somewhat of I don't want to say bust because he did have some good years out of the bullpen. He won a World Series with us. And in my opinion, if you help us win a World Series, I really can't consider you a bust, right?
Same with AJ Burnett. People mention him like as a bad contract. Like, yo, if you win us a World Series, you could have a fucking 10-year right the next 3 seasons for all I care.
Right.
At least that's the way, from the mindset I've talked to this whole episode, the way I feel like, yo, just get me one. Do whatever after that. I don't really care. So AJ to me is a total success. Same with even like, not that people look this as like a bust, but like the Teixeira contract isn't always looked at as like amazing, but dude got us a World Series and in that first year should have won MVP or was second to Joe Mauer in winning MVP. So like you just get us that 1 year, like your contract is instantly justified.
Marcus Killigrew says Brian Taylor. Now he was the #1 overall pick in, I believe, 1990 or 1991. He was a left-hander out of North Carolina, threw 100 miles an hour, just a complete athlete. He was big and tall and lean, and he looked like the prototypical. He almost looked like a Randy Johnson type of pitcher, but he was slighter of frame. Got into a bar fight and tore his labrum. And again, never the same. You tear the labrum, you're never the same. It's just do you know what the labrum is?
Shoulder. That's all I much know.
The labrum essentially, there's some soft tissue that keeps the bone in the socket. It's kind of like a suction cup, right? And when you tear the labrum, there's 2 types of tears. You can either tear it like, laterally where it just becomes like frayed, or you can actually separate it from the bone, which is the type that most people have. When you extend your arm too much, it just tears the tissue right off the bone. And I think that's what happened to him. And you just can't go back to pitching after that. So
that sounds, what did you have that, like the total separation?
Yeah, well, mine was a slight separation, and then I pitched with it for a decade in my semi-pro leagues, and now I can't lift my arm. Like, I can't even get the milk out of the fridge with my right arm, and I can't comb my hair with my right arm. It's bad.
Sorry to hear that. So you still playing ball or not?
No. When I started NYY Recaps, I decided this is how I was going to get my baseball juices exercised,
Right.
So Jeff Weaver, he was terrible.
Jeff Weaver.
Mason Williams.
These are all guys, I know the name, but was Mason? I know he was one of our top prospects, but that also came at a time where the Yankees prospect farm system was just nothing.
Right.
So he was never really, I think, projected to be more than like a maybe backup decent outfielder. Hideki Arabu.
Yeah, Arabu was one of those guys who he smoked in the bullpen, and he was I remember one time the ball kind of got away in the infield, and he took off his glove and threw it at the ball to try and stop which I've never seen a major leaguer do. It's a 2-base error if you do that, and I've never seen anybody else do that. Marcus also says Jose Contreras. He was the guy who spawned the Evil Empire meme.
He's kind of annoying with his case because he ended up balling up for Chicago after we traded him.
Yeah, he helped them win a World Series. It turned out, playing under Ozzie Guillen and just being out of the pressure cooker of New York really served him well. Yeah. But, I always thought that he had great stuff. He just Joe Torre didn't like him, and so he didn't really get a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, he really didn't have too much of a spot that first year, right? And he was kind of in the bullpen.
Right.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, Sonny Gray is the ace of this bust lineup. Thank you to Frankie.
Hey, to give Gray a little credit, that game 4 we always talk about against Houston in 17, pitched 5 scoreless innings. So
yeah,
he had one good moment,
He had his moment, but ultimately did not work out for him. But anyway, Dan, I appreciate you joining me here today. It's a ton of fun. Have to have you back on throughout the season. Everybody go, help. If you're not subscribed to Dan, I don't know why. I mean, he's getting close to 100,000 subscribers. And the producer of Towing the Slab, go like the Toe in the Slab, or go follow it, subscribe, all that stuff. Dan, one more time for Mr. Dan Rourke.
Hi, Dan.
Let's go. Thanks for having me, Derek. I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you to the audience. Hey, we're going to do streams on, if they're not on, well, they're going to be on YouTube every single stream, but we're also going to be live on the new Twitch channel, which is NYY Recaps, and they're live on Twitter right now, and we got a new store, which is live in the comments, so check all that stuff out. I will be back next Friday with Frankie Baseball and Pete Simonetti to kick off the season. So until then, see you guys next time.
Ball game over.
Dan, appreciate it, man.
Hell yeah, dude. That was a blast. Anytime. Maybe we should hop on for the season starts. A little collab on my channel, too, or something.
For sure, man. Anytime. Anytime, buddy.
All right, bro.
buddy.
I'll see you.
Catch you later.